You've been told that AI is the future of computing, that every new computer needs artificial intelligence built in, that upgrading to a Windows 11 AI PC is essential for staying competitive, productive, and secure. But what if one of Microsoft's biggest hardware partners just admitted that nobody actually wants these AI-powered machines? At the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2026, Dell's executives said something no other major PC manufacturer had dared to say publicly. Kevin Terwilliger, Dell's head of product, revealed that consumers aren't buying computers based on AI capabilities. In fact, he stated that AI probably confuses customers more than it helps them understand what they're actually getting. This wasn't a minor comment buried in a footnote. This was Dell's leadership openly contradicting Microsoft's entire Windows 11 strategy at the industry's most important trade show. Dell generates 40% of its revenue from PC sales. They're not a small player making desperate statements for attention. They're Microsoft's largest hardware partner. And they just told the world that the Emperor has no clothes. This video will show you why Dell made this unprecedented admission, what it reveals about the AI features Microsoft has been pushing into Windows 11, and why this matters even if you never plan to buy a Dell computer. Microsoft launched Copilot Plus PCs in June 2024 with a clear promise. These weren't just computers with better processors or longer battery life. They were marketed as an entirely new class of machine, fundamentally different from anything that came before. The requirement was simple but specific: a neural processing unit capable of executing at least 40 trillion operations per second. According to Microsoft's own marketing materials, these AI PCs would prepare users for the next generation of computing. The company claimed these machines were the fastest, most intelligent Windows PCs ever built. They promised features that would accelerate productivity and creativity in ways traditional computers simply couldn't match. The centerpiece of this vision was a feature called Recall. Recall was designed to function as photographic memory for your computer. Every few seconds, the feature captures a screenshot of whatever you're doing. These snapshots are stored locally on your device, creating a searchable timeline of your entire digital life. Microsoft explained that users could ask questions in natural language like, "What was that project I was working on last Tuesday?" And Recall would find it instantly. No more searching through folders or trying to remember file names. Your computer would remember everything for you. The system used AI to analyze these screenshots, extracting text, identifying objects, and building a database of everything you'd ever viewed on your screen. Microsoft emphasized that all processing happened locally. No internet connection required, no data sent to the cloud. Everything stayed on your device, protected by encryption and biometric authentication through Windows Hello. This sounded revolutionary on paper. Microsoft predicted it would change how people interact with their computers entirely. But when security researchers actually examined how Recall works, they discovered something Microsoft hadn't mentioned in their marketing materials. In May 2024, cybersecurity researcher Kevin Beaumont published detailed findings about Recall's actual implementation. The feature was taking screenshots every 5 seconds by default. These weren't selective captures of important moments. This was continuous surveillance of everything visible on your screen. Messages you thought disappeared from Signal and WhatsApp. Passwords entered into login forms. Credit card numbers typed into payment fields. Medical information viewed in healthcare portals. Everything was being captured and stored. The screenshots were saved in a SQLite database on the local drive. When researchers examined this database, they found it wasn't encrypted in the initial version. Another security researcher developed a tool called Total Recall that could extract this data in under 2 minutes. Any malware with basic file access could read your entire computing history. Any person with physical access to your computer could see everything you've done for the past 3 months. Microsoft's sensitive information filter was supposed to prevent the capture of passwords and financial data. Independent testing by the Register revealed systematic failures. The filter worked only when sensitive information was labeled in ways the system expected. An unlabeled credit card number would be captured. A password field without the word password nearby would be captured. Test after test showed that enough sensitive data slipped through the filter to represent a serious privacy risk. You might think this only matters if someone steals your laptop or installs malware on your system. But consider how data actually moves in the real world. Many organizations create regular backups of employee computers. Those backups now contain months of screenshot data. Corporate IT departments with remote management tools can access these files. Security vulnerabilities that allow remote code execution can exfiltrate the entire database. The data doesn't need to leave your computer intentionally to become accessible to others. The backlash was immediate and severe. Privacy advocates called Recall a surveillance nightmare. The UK Information Commissioner's Office announced they were making inquiries into the feature. Security professionals compared it to keylogging malware that users would normally remove from their systems. The comparison wasn't hyperbole. Recall was doing exactly what spyware does, creating a comprehensive record of user activity without clear informed consent. Microsoft responded by delaying Recall's launch from June 2024 to October, then to December. The feature became opt-in rather than opt-out. The company added encryption to the database protected by Windows Hello biometric authentication. They implemented filters to block capturing from private browsing windows and specific applications. They required virtualization-based security enclaves to protect the encryption keys. But when security researchers tested the updated version in late 2024, fundamental problems remained. The encryption could be unlocked with a PIN code if biometric authentication wasn't set up. That PIN was often the same 4 to 6-digit code users had been using for years. Kevin Beaumont demonstrated that his partner with no technical knowledge could access his recall data simply by knowing his PIN. The sophisticated encryption architecture collapsed to the security level of a basic locker code. Testing by multiple independent researchers found that Recall still captured sensitive information the filters were supposed to block. Over time, enough unfiltered data accumulated to create serious exposure risks. The feature was better than the original unencrypted version, but it remained a comprehensive surveillance system running on millions of devices. Privacy regulations like GDPR establish clear principles about data collection. Organizations must collect only the minimum data necessary for a specific purpose. They must obtain informed consent. They must implement appropriate security measures. Recall violates data minimization by capturing everything instead of what's actually needed. The opt-in process doesn't adequately explain the risks involved. Even with encryption, the fundamental security model places enormous sensitive data in a single queryable database. For healthcare workers, Recall could capture patient information displayed on screens, potentially violating HIPAA regulations in the United States. For lawyers, it could capture privileged communications with clients. For journalists, it could expose confidential sources. For domestic violence survivors, it could reveal new addresses or communications with support services if an abuser gains access to the device. These aren't theoretical concerns. Consider a therapist who uses their personal laptop for both work notes and personal tasks. Recall captures session notes containing patient details. The therapist's device is stolen from their car. The thief doesn't need to crack enterprise-grade encryption. They only need to guess a 4-digit PIN or use malware to extract the database during a vulnerable moment. Months of confidential therapy sessions are now compromised. Consider a small business owner working on a confidential acquisition deal. Recall captures emails, spreadsheets, and financial documents. The owner's IT support provider has remote access for troubleshooting. A compromised account at that support company gives attackers a path to the Recall database. The acquisition details leak before the deal closes, costing millions. These scenarios share a common pattern. The risk doesn't come from Recall working incorrectly. The risk comes from Recall working exactly as designed, creating a comprehensive record that becomes a single point of failure for months of sensitive information. If this information is opening your eyes to what's really happening with Windows 11 AI features, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment telling me if you're using Windows 11, if you've disabled Recall, or if you're considering switching to a different operating system. Your engagement helps this message reach more people who need to know. Now let's talk about what Dell's admission really means. After the privacy backlash, Microsoft made changes. Recall became opt-in. Encryption was added, filters were improved. The rollout was limited to Windows Insider testing. But Dell's statement at CES 2026 suggests these changes didn't address the fundamental problem. The issue wasn't just security implementation. The issue was that consumers don't want continuous screenshot surveillance on their computers, regardless of how it's secured. Dell's COO Jeff Clark described an unmet promise of AI in the PC market. There was an expectation that AI would drive consumer demand for new computers. That expectation hasn't materialized. Instead, AI marketing appears to be confusing potential buyers rather than convincing them to upgrade. Windows 11 adoption itself is running 10 to 12 percentage points behind Windows 10 at the same point in its life cycle. According to Clark's statement during Dell's earnings call, this slow adoption isn't happening in isolation. As of November 2025, Windows 11 held only 53.7% market share among Windows desktops, while Windows 10 still commanded 42.7% despite being past its end of support date. Millions of users are choosing to stay on an unsupported operating system rather than upgrade to Windows 11. Dell's response was strategic. Their new XPS laptops, announced at CES 2026, contain neural processing units. They meet Microsoft's Copilot Plus PC specifications. They'll ship with the Copilot key on the keyboard because Microsoft's licensing agreements require it. But Dell's marketing deliberately avoids mentioning AI as the primary selling point. Instead, they're emphasizing battery life, build quality, display technology, and gaming performance. The AI capabilities are present but downplayed. This represents a complete reversal from Dell's 2024 strategy. A year earlier, the company had embraced AI branding so aggressively that they retired their entire traditional product line naming. XPS, Inspiron, and Latitude were replaced with Dell, Dell Pro, and Dell Pro Max to emphasize AI capabilities. That rebrand was widely criticized by customers who found the new names confusing and generic. At CES 2026, Dell announced they were bringing back the XPS brand, effectively admitting the AI-first rebrand had failed. If you're using a Windows 11 Copilot Plus PC, you can disable Recall entirely. Go to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Recall and Snapshots. Toggle off Save Snapshots. This prevents new screenshots from being captured. To remove existing data, select Delete Snapshots in the same menu. For complete removal of the feature, open Windows Search and type Windows Features. Select Turn Windows Features on or off. Find Recall in the list and uncheck it. Windows will automatically delete all saved snapshots from your computer. In enterprise environments, IT administrators can disable Recall system-wide using group policy or mobile device management policies. Beyond Recall, you can minimize other data collection in Windows 11. Go to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Diagnostics and Feedback. Change diagnostic data collection to Required Only rather than Optional. Review app permissions for camera, microphone, and location access. Disable permissions for applications that don't need them for core functionality. For users concerned about AI features more broadly, check which applications have access to your typing data. Go to Settings, Privacy and Security, then Inking and Typing Personalization. Disable this if you don't want Microsoft collecting typing patterns to improve text prediction. These steps won't eliminate all data collection, but they reduce the volume of information Windows gathers about your activity. Dell's admission reveals something Microsoft doesn't want to acknowledge. The company spent 2 years positioning AI as the fundamental reason to upgrade to Windows 11 and purchase new hardware. They tied exclusive features to expensive neural processing units. They created a new category of Copilot Plus PCs marketed as essential for modern computing. They pushed Recall as a revolutionary feature that would change how people work. But when consumers actually evaluated these AI features, they found solutions to problems most people don't have. Recall promised to help users find things they'd seen before, but most people already have effective methods for organizing their work. Image generation tools in Paint sound impressive in demonstrations, but solve real needs for only a small subset of users. On-device speech processing might be faster, but existing cloud-based solutions work well enough that the difference doesn't justify new hardware. The gap between Microsoft's AI vision and consumer priorities created an opening for Dell to publicly distance itself from that strategy. They recognized that continuing to push AI-first marketing would alienate potential customers who care more about reliability, performance, and value than about features they won't use. This calculation by a major hardware partner suggests Microsoft's AI push has become a liability rather than an asset in the consumer market. Your operating system is supposed to be a tool that serves your needs, but Windows 11 increasingly feels like a platform for Microsoft's strategic priorities rather than user requirements. AI features you didn't ask for, data collection you need to manually disable, marketing that promises revolutionary capabilities while the actual improvements remain invisible to most users. You have two choices right now. First, if you're using Windows 11, take 15 minutes to review your privacy settings. Disable recall if it's present. Minimize diagnostic data collection. Check app permissions. These aren't perfect solutions, but they reduce your exposure while using the operating system. Second, share this information with someone who uses Windows 11 but might not be aware of these issues. Privacy isn't just a personal concern, it's a collective one. Remember this: when a company's biggest hardware partner publicly contradicts their core strategy, that's not just business disagreement. That's a signal that something fundamental has gone wrong with their approach. Dell didn't make this admission lightly. They did it because the data is undeniable. Consumers aren't buying AI PCs, they're confused by the marketing. They're concerned about privacy. They're staying on older hardware or choosing alternatives. Microsoft bet billions on AI integration. They redesigned Windows around it. They created new hardware requirements for it. They pushed their biggest partners to embrace it, and the market rejected it. This isn't about being anti-AI. AI has legitimate uses, but forcing it into every aspect of an operating system, creating surveillance features disguised as productivity tools, and requiring expensive hardware upgrades for features most people don't want. That's not innovation, that's desperation. Windows 11 was supposed to define computing for the 2020s. Instead, it's becoming a cautionary tale about what happens when a company prioritizes its strategic goals over user needs. The recall feature perfectly encapsulates this failure. Microsoft saw an opportunity to demonstrate AI capabilities. They built a feature that takes constant screenshots, they marketed it as helpful, and they completely ignored the obvious privacy implications until security researchers forced them to acknowledge the problems. That's not user-first design, that's technology looking for a problem to solve, regardless of whether users want that solution. Dell's admission at CES 2026 is just the beginning. Other hardware partners are watching. Other manufacturers are seeing the data. They know AI isn't driving sales. The question is whether Microsoft will listen. Will they acknowledge that users don't want AI forced into every aspect of their operating system? Will they respect privacy? Will they focus on making Windows better at the basic tasks people actually use it for? Or will they double down? Push harder on AI integration? Make recall mandatory in future versions? Require even more expensive hardware? Every indication suggests they'll double down, because admitting the AI strategy failed means admitting billions in investment was misguided. Means acknowledging they lost touch with what users actually want, and corporations rarely admit they were wrong until it's too late. So share this video, subscribe to this channel, because the story of Windows 11 and AI PCs isn't over. It's entering a critical phase. And what happens next will determine whether Microsoft learns from this failure or accelerates toward an even bigger one. The revolt against Windows 11 is real. The rejection of AI PCs is measurable. And Dell just became the first major hardware partner to say publicly what everyone already knows. Nobody wants these machines, nobody asked for these features, and nobody believes Microsoft's promises anymore. That's the truth. That's what Dell admitted, and that's what Microsoft refuses to acknowledge.